All right, I think we're live now. Let me send out this link. There we go. You guys should see it in your feeds, but I'll put it in this chat box also. All right, so we are here to talk about the Phish Fall Tour. We have a group of esteemed gentlemen here, and Zach. So we have Brian, who's at Suffering Juke. Hey, Brian.
How we doing?
Subtle.
Jim, who's at Fly Fishing with PH. Hi, Jim.
Hey, everyone.
Wade, Original Willis. Hi, Wade.
How you doing?
And Zach. What's up, dude?
Hey, I'm sponsored by Prana tonight, by the way, everyone. I have to give them a shout out. Prana is my proud sponsor. I'm doing experiential, social, digital marketing for them. Instagram narrative art campaign based around the Wandering Jews' first winter in Colorado. So follow along, prana.com.
Good job.
Care of Scott Reese in Asheville.
Nice. So, guys, thanks for joining. And many of you were at the Halloween show. I think maybe Brian and I were the only ones who weren't there. So why don't we had like a rebirth of Phish in the city of death and depravity. Who wants to start with Vegas and the whole experience and what it meant to you?
Go ahead, Jim.
You know, I was most impressed by the crowd all weekend, honestly. I walked away from Vegas saying, I normally walk away from a run trying to dissect it into who's playing I thought was the most dialed in or had the most original thoughts to make on the stage, but I give us the fucking gold medal for the weekend. It was classic symbiotic crowd band interaction all weekend. I felt like I was sharing the stage, and simply there were just vibes I haven't experienced from a seat in a Phish show in a long time, and I think just the crowd's involvement pushed the band to a higher place, honestly. And so just to cap it there, that was my biggest takeaway from Vegas. Couldn't be happier.
Awesome. What about you?
Call me crazy, but my biggest takeaway from Vegas has nothing to do with us and actually has something to do with Phish. But I'm crazy.
That's insane.
How dare you?
Brian, what about you? Just being there on the sidelines as I was as well.
Kind of another one of those moments where it's really hard to question this band and assume anything. I feel like we went through this all of last year, where every time anyone on Twitter or anyone within the fan base, there was always this momentum against what Phish was doing, this questioning of have they lost us, have they lost what they're doing, and then Wingsuit happens or Fall Tour 2013 happens, and this tour was, I almost had to stop going on Twitter because every time I went on it, it was just a bunch of negative energy and a bunch of questioning over what Phish's intentions were. And I remember when I found out about what they were doing for the Halloween set, I quickly searched out what the album was, and I had no idea how they were what direction they were gonna take it in, but it just seemed like a platform for them to go wild and experiment. And then to hear it the next day, they completely topped any expectation I could have ever had. And then they followed it up with two shows that are two of my favorites of the year that I think point the way forward for what they're going to do with the jams they did in the middle of the set. It's interesting, though, Jim, that you talk about the crowd as being the most impressive aspect of Vegas, because so many people were complaining about the crowds throughout the West Coast tour. And I wonder if that had anything to do with the playing of the first couple of weeks. It's something I think that we'll try to get into later, but it's really interesting to me to think that for the first 10 days of tour, they were kind of playing in mellow crowds. There wasn't the energy that they're used to. And then come Vegas, and everyone's kind of got this adrenaline, which we all know tends to work in a back and forth relationship between the band.
Wade, do you what's your big takeaway from the weekend?
Big takeaway from Vegas is, undoubtedly the second set. I feel like something like that. It's almost like, people wanted them to do The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway for the longest time. They wanted them to do Thriller, and it was like The Lamb Lies Down on Thriller. You know what I mean? It's like you get that big, you get the big spooky set, the improvised heads, this huge. It takes an incredible amount of tightness to be able to work the samples in and keep reworking them. It was just, I'm still blown away. I just sat down and listened to it again tonight, and I'm still freaking out. So
Awesome. Zach, what about you?
I'm not freaking out because I'm always calm and collected. So
Very true.
I'm known for my measured stance and pace on a lot of things, and as a
Chat will not be full of lies, Zach.
as the Henry Kissinger of Fish Tour, I would like to say that power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. No, lots to say. I will just try to hew tonight to a more manageable routine here. Brian said something interesting, how the band used Chilling Thrilling as a platform, and I think that's quite right and a really important point that I personally have been focusing on over the past week. I had an incredible time in Halloween. Vegas was a lot better than I've remembered it. The crowd definitely showed up. The MGM, if you stayed there, was a great experience to just be able to go in and out, stay in the hotel, and the shows were incredible. I mean, people always question, why do they do Halloween before and then you have 2 extra shows? But it totally makes sense because when they crush Halloween, then you have got 2 extra nights of just celebration, which was exactly what Saturday and Sunday were. It's like, there are no worries. Halloween's over. It was fucking awesome. The crowd ruled. Now the other side of that was Wingsuit, when I think people woke up. I think it was Friday was the second night in Halloween in Atlantic City last year, and there were grumblings, and I think it took, although both 11-1 and 11-2 last year were great shows too. In fact, I think some people would think they're better than the Halloween show. But I love the idea of them using this album. It's as a platform. I think it's a multifaceted way or method to not only skirt a Halloween issue. Are they going to cover an album? Because they did technically cover an album, but they did it in a way that I think that effectively puts the old Halloween tradition to rest of an album. Because you could say that Wingsuit did that, where they didn't cover someone else's album. This is another step in that direction. Who knows what the next Halloween will be, or if there ever even will be one. This would be a great one to end with. I certainly hope not. But it's multifaceted also in the idea of remixing. I think we live in remix culture. This is something that's very talked about in media these days. Whether it's remixes of actual music or if it's remix culture on Tumblr or culture blogs where people mash things together and create their own art out of others. So I think there's an aspect of that. And I think, as important as anything is this is a platform for them to do some of the things that I think they can, want, and should be doing, which is these theatrical productions, something that's always been a part of Phish's performances. I think their theater early on was in there being the best cover band ever or the best bar band ever, right, in the 80s and early 90s, and then their theater became narration with almost nightly narrations. In the early 90s, when really almost every night you would get, Hold Your Head Up, or you'd get, Harpoo, or you'd get a Trey, Gamehenge narration, at least throughout part of the set. It was very improv and it was very narrative based. And I think obviously in the mid to late 90s, the theater part became just the music itself because it just kind of took on its own theatrical dimension. And whether you're talking about 95 and this abstract jazz moment, or 97, 98 with the funk groove stuff, that it really just became straight up music, which led to Cypress. But yeah, I mean, you add in Broadway, you add in Hands on a Hard Body, Trey's symphony work, some of the mic stuff, the experimental lighting and interaction stuff. These guys are clearly moving forward as individual artists on their own. And I think the best thing, I mean, there was a joke on Twitter, and I'll wrap it up after this. There was a joke on Twitter that was spreading around over Fall Tour that Phish was Trey's side project. it was funny because it was basically, you know, expressing a frustration that, you know, Trey's spending all this time with Tab and Symphony and Broadway, and like, why can't he just focus on Phish so that Phish can be great? And I think that we couldn't have been more wrong. Anybody who thought that was funny was like happy to be, never more happier to be wrong. That in fact, all of those other things that these guys do, and I think Page's album needs to be talked about tonight. Maybe tonight's night right now is not the moment, but Page's album from last year should be brought up because it was very much an impressionistic and you know, ambiguous album. And
Good.
We lose Wade.
I think Wade's making Halloween noises. I don't know what happened.
Wait on PT. Get off PT, Wade. It's not good for you.
I was just saying it was so good. I love that Page record, man. You want to talk about, you know, sitting in front of a window and crying for an hour?
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows for sure, but I think it's come out that like a lot of this was potentially Page's concept that he introduced to the band, and I think the fact that he was running some of the controls speaks to that. I mean, of course, it's completely collaborative. It sounds just like Phish, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about it. We're going to get into it. I think we'll come back to a lot of things like what even is it? Is it just jams? Are they just impressionistic grooves that Phish wrote based on a prompt? You know, the Esther prompt. Hey, here's a scenario. Here's a logger. Here's a shipwreck. Here's a person with a pet cat. Here's a Martian journey. And like, boom, Phish has to make a groove out of it. You've got 2 minutes to like make it work. So I think we're going to come back to that. But the idea of this kind of thing as a platform really strikes me.
Yeah.
Well, so I want to go back to the beginning of tour and then maybe end back with Vegas. But Jim, did you want to chime in before we go back to Eugene? Which actually maybe you want to start there because you were there as well.
Yeah, no. Let's go that direction. Yeah, I was lucky enough to bookend tour with the opening and the closing weekends, and one thing looking back on it, a couple themes that emerged, having of course also listened to the rest of Fall as it was happening, was I was just thrilled to be entertained during first sets again. I mean, I hope everyone else kind of saw and appreciated what I appreciated out of just the lack of a structure to a first set and the attention and the effort made towards crafting a real first part of a show. It started in Eugene with it just felt like songs were coming like out of left field, and there was no kind of typical, oh, we're just tuning up here and don't worry, second set will be great. And that was a theme, minus just a couple nights throughout fall that I was just thrilled to see.
Nice.
I'll say this about Eugene. Great venue. I thought the sound, the vibe was huge. It was homecoming weekend that weekend too, which I think added to it, you know, a little college town vibe. My highlights were the bust outs in the first set of Eugene, and that cross-eyed, of course, in the second set was phenomenal. Seattle left me a little, honestly, worried. We couldn't help but notice a couple times we were like, boy, Trey just doesn't look well tonight, and there was this like discernible kind of odd physical appearance to Trey that night. Like he was like a bag of bones in his clothes and everything, and that gave me pause for concern. But the rest of the tour worked it out, and I don't know. That was my walkaway. That Seattle was left concerned. That I'm sure you guys could pick up from there, like how the tour progressed and kind of struggled at first.
I think he had the original case of Wook flu. He was patient 0, and then before he gave it to all you idiots, within the next week or so.
Trey virus happens at the beginning of every tour.
But that's
this case sort of went for a long time. But the Trebola clears up.
Yeah. So Wade, you're a musician. What's your take on the first couple shows being a little rusty and everyone kind of as you getting the fuck out?
You know what? The certain signs of rust. I truly thought that.
Is Wade having a seizure?
I hope not.
Wait, come back. Don't die.
Gosh.
On the shit show, that was amazing.
Oh my God!
I don't know where he came out from. That was amazing.
Wow.
Holy shit!
That was awesome.
You are a fucking legend. Oh my God!
Well, I guess that's the end.
Yep, that's it.
Nice job, Steve.
Everyone.
Unbelievable.
A bottle of Jameson too? It's amazing.
Wow.
Is Mrs. the Victor? Oh shit!
Odie. It's got my Sam Smith. You're so 1.0, Victor. Drinking oatmeal stouts on lot.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
only
right here.
195.
It's always lot at Vic's house, dude.
Boom, Victor, dude.
Oh my god.
Oh, look at these guys. All right, so Wade, back to your point. Sorry, you were cutting out there a little bit.
Well,
but
I was
some
going to
rust.
say they were, they were a little rusty coming out of the gates, and certainly Santa Barbara Night 1 was a complete and utter shit show, but still contains probably it might be my favorite jam of the tour, and that Dust Ghost. So while there was certainly cause for concern, I don't know if I ever looked at Trey on the webcast and thought that he wasn't well, but certainly something was going on, it could have been Halloween, it could be any number of things, but I feel like it was a very gradual burn to get there, but they finally, San Francisco sort of woke up, and the charge to the finish line was really, really strong. So.
Can I say something about Santa Barbara? I think that's pretty accurate, Wade. I mean, it's not fair to speculate. We'll do it anyway, and we all do it, but it's not fair to speculate what's going on. Who's doing what, or who's sick, or who's not. I mean, we heard, all sorts of rumors. I mean, that happens when the fan. I think that the more important part is not like what's actually going on. It's that the fan base is really in tune with when they think something's not quite right. And I mean, I was at Santa Barbara. I listened, obviously, to the whole tour, and then I finished the last night in San Fran and 3 nights of Vegas. The band that I saw Tuesday night in Santa Barbara was not the band that I saw when they were actively upset with each other on stage. Trey's like pointing fingers at who was ending jams. Fishman says a little comment during Susie Greenberg about having Trey count off the songs when they start them. There's clearly some stuff. I mean, there was a webcast issue on Saturday where I think they opened with Cavern, and it looked like Trey got caught off guard, and Fishman maybe was kind of fucking with Trey. But I think when that happens, like, oh, Trey's sick, or Trey's this, or blah 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 blah, or Paige is upset, or Mike is not in it, is that we can sense something's wrong and we don't know how to deal with it. We're just searching for answers, and you have faith. You end up, it becomes a choice. Do I want to give up, or do I want to say I trust these guys, and in 3 days they're going to be back. They know what they're doing, and they're controlling this story for me. And I think anyone who kept faith, and I mean personally, I wasn't planning on going to San Francisco. I ended up pulling the trigger and spending money I don't really have to add an extra night in San Fran because I felt like I wanted to be there. I needed to be there for them, for people I knew that were on tour, and I was like, I see a band struggling, and I go to them. I don't run in the opposite direction. And that's true because when I see anyone struggling, I go towards. I don't run from. And I think that's an important thing
I agree, and I think what you're saying is really interesting. And one thing that has struck me as I was listening through the first 10 days of tour. Are you a sponsor for Patagonia as well?
I am also sponsored by Patagonia. I'm sorry, I'm in debt, so I'm actually now pouring myself out to any kind of cool outdoor lifestyle brand in the yoga or mountain biking spaces. If you want to get in touch, it's sales.whore@blankspacestrategies.com. Please send me anything, swag, cigarettes would be, Cliff Bars. That would be very helpful. Thank you so much.
Cliff Bars. All right, go ahead, Brian.
All right. Thank you for that commercial break, Zach. The things that kept getting me about the first week of tour, because I completely agree with you, there were shows I was listening to where I was just like, what is going on with this band? There were moments where they felt more out of whack than I'd heard them since New Year's 2011, and maybe in some cases since June 2010, where they just sounded like they couldn't hook up, they couldn't play songs. It was completely different from, there's a lot of criticism that goes around about this summer, a lot of which I agree with some, I disagree with most of it. I thought this summer was really good, but this felt way out of whack from that. This felt personal in a lot of ways. However, at the same time, Jim pointed this out, you had the Cross-Eyed and Painless from Eugene, the Sand from Seattle, that Ghost from Santa Barbara, which I personally think is probably the best jam of the entire tour. The last 3 minutes are some of the most original song-based jamming I think I've heard them play in years, where like it literally sounds like they're writing the song on stage. It's not just a free-form jam, like there's a ton of structure to it. The Down with Disease from Los Angeles was incredible. The peak that they reach at the end is some of the best just like melodic rock and roll jamming from Trey that I've heard all year. It sounded like stuff he was playing in summer 2013, almost like the Cross-Eyed and Painless from PNC. It just had that really like celebratory sound to it, and it was almost like arena rock, and was really fitting for the Forum. So you had all these moments within this tour that definitely had its fair share of conflict clearly between the band members. There was a lack of connection in a lot of ways, and I just can't believe that in the middle of all of that, and I don't know if anyone has any ideas of why it occurred, in the middle of all of that, there were these moments of total connection that to me pointed the way towards Halloween, but it kind of threw me awry throughout the tour, and like Zach was saying, it helped me keep faith that okay, everything is okay, even though there's this up and down happening over and over again.
Yeah, I totally agree. I felt the same way, Brian. But Vic, you haven't spoken yet, so tell us what you think about from going from Eugene onward, and also can you explain your outfit, please?
Please.
We can't hear you. Oh, shit.
Gina's got him muzzled.
Vic, you're muted or something.
This is the Vic is hot.
You think?
It's probably better we can't hear him.
We can see him at least. Steve, figure out how to, maybe you muted if it's up on the top of the screen, and then he left. So hopefully he'll come back.
We talk about that Santa Barbara, the seed. Well, first of all, the start of the Ghost, and then the seed coming out of the Ghost. I wasn't there, but just listening, I feel like that was one of the musical highlights of the entire tour. Like that's the number one section I think I'll listen to.
Big dig, Dust Ghost, best jam in tour, hands down.
Wait, which one are you guys talking about? Santa Barbara?
Santa Barbara Ghost.
Yep. Yeah, well, that was the first night, right? The first night when people
that
were
was the shit show.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I've never felt the oddness at Santa Barbara when I was there. It was a gorgeous venue. It was small, basically a small Hollywood Bowl by like maybe a third or 2/3 smaller. And I have never seen or felt or heard a band that was clearly it was weird. And the music, they're always going to be able to punch out a couple of great jams, but the show had no coherency. Was strange energy on stage, strange energy in the crowd that they did a piss poor job of managing, and that is their job to manage. They are the entertainers, and it just kind of broke out. I mean, it somehow ended up being probably because of the qualities of the jams that have been mentioned, the Ghost and Carini Ghost from Santa Barbara the first night, but the second night. On the complete flip side, was a tender, passionate, obviously with the Soul Shakedown party, they kind of knew, man, we need to do some healing. We need to do some tender embrace of the people out there because shit's getting out of control, and it was. I mean, tour was getting away from them, and that's a legit possibility. Sometimes when you have 12 shows, each one matters. You don't have 3 months, to come back.
So
and that's okay. I'm okay with 12-show fall tours. I really am. I
Yeah.
can't afford to go on anymore.
So you think that they knew that it was like not working and wasn't clicking, and that people were feeling it, and that the 22nd was some sort of turnaround?
And they needed a little soul healing, hence the opener. And the show was passionate and tender. It sounded great. I believe it was like Soul Shakedown Party, The Wedge, maybe Undermined in that set. Like really good, fishy songs that are really tough to hate on and get the crowd moving. The second set, I thought the jamming was great. I don't know if it's held up that well upon re-listening, but in the moment, I love that Drown theme sequence.
Which was great. Yep.
Really beautiful. The venue, it was not busy. There were tickets outside.
One thing I really like about that first set you're talking about, where they kind of had to hold the crowd, they ended with a really, really demented Split Open and Melt into Walls of the Cave. Which, are there any two songs in the Fish like echelon that sound different than those two and are as composed to be as long as those two? I mean, that's a 20-minute segment of music right there where you go through one song that was representative of everything that collapsed at Coventry. I mean, they literally played that song to describe everything that they were feeling in that awful second set. I don't know if I should say awful, but that really just like that second set that felt like the end of the world at Coventry. And then they play Walls of the Cave, which is this this song that almost related to 9/11 when they came out with it. To close out that set with those two songs felt so perfect for exactly what you're talking about, Zach. It felt like they were at odds in a lot of ways.
Wade or Steve, jump in. Steve, can you? We still can't hear you, man. Wade,
it's fucking
I think Keenan is all that we need right now.
Wade, are you shaking your head at us or Zach or just the entire kind of situation or Fish or
Vic,
the world?
the Vic. I'm just shaking
Okay.
it.
Who are you shaking your head at?
I just every time I'm around you nerds, I'm in a constant state of just shaking my head. And actually, I'm just trying not to throw up in my own mouth the fact that any of us have ever had sex before. This is why I'm shaking my head, because this is the level of nerddom will keep me forever. So
all right. So let's go back to the
bullshit. I had the best sex in Halloween out of anyone on Fish Tour. By far.
That's not for today.
that's not for today.
So all right, guys. So 1022 Santa Barbara to Zach. I agree. It was awesome. It was totally different. And then Brad, who hopefully will join us at some point. He went to San Diego and LA and saw two shows that he just thought were fine, mostly. And then they went to San Francisco, and then it was a whole different world once they got to San Francisco. So what's the takeaway and the ups and downs and the sort of flow? Does it take them 10 shows or 7 shows to warm up at this point, or
did it last year?
I thought this summer started off really strong. Where the fashion of 3.0 had kind of been, it took some time for the band to really hit their stride. I'd say this summer was quite the opposite. I don't think that can describe what happened this fall, but I thought they turned it back on in Bill Graham. I wasn't there. I'd like to hear from someone here, how they saw a shift, the shift that definitely happened in San Francisco, why that came about.
Yeah, and I just want to throw out there, I think they might have been overly focused on all this new 10 song or 12, whatever number of songs it was for Halloween. Maybe could that have been taking attention away? But I think you're right. Who was that? Bill Graham. Zach, tell us.
Sorry. Bill Graham.
Yeah.
So I added a flight before Vegas. Flew into LA. Flew into San Fran 5:00 on Wednesday. Got place to stay and a ticket within 20 minutes of landing, thanks to Patrick Brennan and a few other people who helped out, Justin and some other friends. Made it a great night. San Fran was big. It was completely different than what I saw in Santa Barbara, even the 1-2 punch with Wednesday and Santa Barbara being great. San Fran, I think knowing that Halloween was right there, being in town during the World Series, Like I jumped off the plane and there's hats everywhere, and it just adds to this whole civic energy around San Francisco. And you're walking to Bill Graham and they've set up World Series screens. I can't emphasize this enough. I know most people at this point have seen the video that Jen Bernstein put up of the moment. There's a bunch of videos, but Jen's was really great because she was riding the rail as always. And she took a video of the moment when the Giants won. It was during MoMA and the crowd started to bubble with energy. And it just built and built and built, and it felt to me like it felt like one of those SPAC crowd waves, but like combined with the intensity of being indoors during World Series, fall kind of baseball season, the October Classic kind of thing, and the crowd just kept growing. To the point where the band and Trey was looking around, confused. What the heck is going on? He's looking at Paige. Took him about 20 seconds, and then boom, right into We Are the Champions. Never have I experienced that kind of energy, although I probably said that a million times. It stayed there the whole night, and that's what made BGC. Musically, it may not stand up to this jam or that jam from this other show, but the energy in that room stayed at that super high level from the second song in the first set all the way through. There wasn't a single break, and it carried through all. There was a great Downward Disease. The melt was giant. It was like a giant shark jumping out of the water and just grabbing you from the stage. It was metallic roar, nightmare, and over the edge, roar, over the edge, falling, and then they kept going, and light is also just tremendous. So, I mean, put those things together. San Fran made the Halloween run for me the same way that I think a lot of people who only saw Halloween was the first night just crested them, and they weren't going to come off that peak until the run was over. So super great, incredible show. I don't really care to say if it's the best show of the year. Who's that? Hogan? Is that Soda Popinski?
No, it's the Iron Sheik, right?
Iron fucking Sheik.
Oh, it's the Iron Sheik. Holy shit!
Vic, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah. Vic.
Steve, tell us your thoughts, all of them.
What were we talking about?
Anything related to Fish.
So,
The ups and downs of fall and where you jumped in and everything you think.
okay, so I only saw half of the third set of Vegas through the end. I watched the webcast I tried to watch the webcast for Seattle, Santa Barbara. I listened to LA, which I personally thought was where the shift started to turn, and they started to really turn it up, which leads me to believe that at some point, I thought the second part of Santa Barbara was really good, but sometime during that LA moving forward, something lifted off their chest, that, as far as I'm concerned. And I personally believe that they don't have a lot of time on stage or behind the scenes together. I think that they had all eyes focused on executing on Halloween. I think they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And if some of the stories that people are saying are true, where they rehearsed it a few times and with Esther and the full gear, and they were practicing it every day, I mean, the pressure that they probably put on themselves to make sure that Halloween came off, I just think probably affected them in a negative way. And you could tell that they just started loosening up towards the middle part, definitely towards San Francisco. They loosened up and they became the band that we love. And that's my personal opinion. I don't think there was anything wrong. There was everything from Trey's on drugs to he has arthritis to I don't believe any of it. That's why I just kind of stayed away from it, watched what other people were saying, and I said I will reserve judgment when I see them in person.
That's such bullshit because Steve was texting me every morning like, oh my God, are these stories true? He's such a dirty gossip. He's lying. I'm just saying. Every morning he's like, give me the dirt, man. I know you're plugged in.
I don't remember these texts.
Well, all right. So and I want to hear from others. I mean, to me, the where this all turned around was the second set of San Francisco, the third night, the one that you saw, Zach, like the Kill Devil Falls, Mountains in the Mist, and I think maybe because of what's that? Was that second night? Second night.
Yeah, and I agree that show is where I definitely like the second set of LA more than a lot of people. I'm in agreement with Vic that something shifted there. I think it's interesting that the next night was just a straight up rock and roll show. Even though I'm not a huge fan of it, I haven't really. I listened to Chula Vista show once, and I don't think I really ever have to hear it again. The first show at San Francisco, I remember that first set really hitting me, but then I remember hearing the Ghost the next morning, and I kind of hate everything about that Ghost. It sounds like something from the worst parts of 2.0. That
weird. It was pretty odd.
Second night of San Francisco, though, was. I know that I took a deep breath while listening to that show. It kind of all the stress of what's happening right now throughout this tour. Are they actually planning? I remember at one point wondering if they were actually planning anything for Halloween because they just sounded so off. That show felt like the big shift to me.
Yeah.
I also am in total agreement with you, Vic, that I really think whatever they were planning for this Halloween, I think we've talked about this a little bit, RJ, there may have been more personal pressure on them that they put on themselves for Wingsuit, but I think there was more structural pressure and logistical pressure that they had on them for this Halloween show, where more things could have gone wrong.
Yeah, and also
what happened at Wingsuit was people booed them, and people probably did. I wasn't there. I've heard that the vibe during that set was a little bit off. I know some people that were on the show, and I've heard some people loved it. I've heard some people really hated it.
But they had all those songs written and sort of played before they started summer tour of, right, or fall tour of last year. So it wasn't like, I feel like they were probably learning it on the fly pretty much, right?
That's how it feels. I don't know. But I think that there's more that could have gone wrong with this Halloween than could have gone wrong last year. I think last year they put their heart on the line. This year they, like Zach was saying, there's so much theatrics to this year's Halloween show that it felt like more of a production than what they did last year, that if one thing was off, the whole gag is ruined.
Totally fair. Well, so Jim, do you want to jump in on the Halloween? Let's just go straight to that. Also, hi Brad and Shirley.
Hey Brad.
Hey Brad.
Hi loves. Hello my loves.
How was storming the Bastille? Fun?
The what?
How was storming the Bastille? Did you have fun today?
Yes.
Yeah, so if we're jumping ahead here to Halloween, which I think probably people tuning in, they probably want to hear us talk about Vegas, and knowing that there was this weird tension or this self-imposed pressure or whatever it was that had the band in a place we're not used to leading up to Halloween. Shit, man, that all went away when they landed in Vegas. Great first sets throughout Vegas, but the only thing to mention about first set on Halloween, I thought, was kind of the funk vibe kicked off right at the end of the set with the Tube and the Wolfmans. And that clearly was, I think, in hindsight, related to the amount of funk that was throughout the improv of the costume set. And
Ding!
Right? If I'm going to get it all off my chest about set 2 now, which I will, I just want to say
He's going to cry!
I think it was the most original artistic statement the band's made since the Sunrise set at Cypress. Honestly. It was really loose. It was really loose. The vibe was huge. It was dancey. It was weird. It was perfect. And to take a 50-year-old album, because this album was essentially written for Halloween in 1964, to take a 50-year-old album and make it sound so modern and so fishy was genius. And I'll forgive all the weirdness of Fall Tour leading up to it for that moment. And one other, and I don't think we saw the end of Chilling Thrilling. I think we're going to get 2 or 3 of these songs worked into the setlist rotation out of the next year. I mean, couldn't you guys just hear the band playing like The Very Long Fuse coming out of a launch pad like a Down with Disease? Or like the Your Pet Cat filling in a late first
Your
funk
Pet
song?
Cat or Get the Funk Out. Tied
Right.
to Your Pet Cat. Book it.
Right. And it was mentioned earlier, but you couldn't help but see that this was kind of Page's brainchild. Just the fact that he was producing during the set. I was like, oh my God, they partnered with some incredible Vegas producer who came out and did all the Disney production. That was my thought during the show. And then when I watched the video, I was like, oh my God, that was Page. He had that top red keyboard that he was doing all the production from. And Wade, I'd love to hear your thoughts because this is right up your alley. But I thought he nailed it.
Yeah,
Hey, weirdo. Stella wants to know why you have a white face, weirdo.
I was born that way, young lady.
Look, see?
You're in children, Vic.
Tell them I tell you love them all. I say I love you all. We say that? No? You don't? Okay. There's RJ. Hi, Uncle RJ. And there's Vic. And look, there's Uncle Zach. Everybody. Hi, guys.
I
Wade,
Sorry.
Wade, what's your take on the production and the I don't know, just like what Jim was talking about? It was like, is this as close to Fish as Fish gets to EDM or something, or what?
Well, no, I mean, that's funny. What an awful thing to say. What a bait. That was bait, too. That was like total fucking Wade bait. Anyway, it was a feat. It was a feat of production. It's an incredible testament to, sort of putting in motion everything they've learned about music and production, like Zach was saying, in their separate lives. And sort of coming together and doing this very theatrical, but ultra modern take on an ancient Disney. I know I'd struggle to say classic because I mean, really, who would have even thought about this record had Fish not, brought it back up? So it's obscure, and it ends up being.
Can I jump in here? Wade, can I jump in here for a quick second?
No.
Of course you can.
Look, the album is obviously obscure, and I think completely sideways and just such a surrealist or absurdist act that Fish is capable of making work and integrating. But the point was made to me by a buddy of mine who's a close watcher of the band, and he said that album is not as obscure to people like in their 40s and 50s. And that is a part of the fan base. That's an album that they would have known well, and that the millennial and X generation it's a little bit more obscure. But I think that there's something to that it's not obscure. It's not as obscure to them as it is to us. Is basically the triangle. Anyway, go continue.
Sure. So at any rate, they I felt very blessed that I was behind the stage because I was at eye level with Zombie Band, with Fishman facing me, and then the other three lads facing Fishman in attack position. So it was like this very primal, theatrical, like Richard Gere said, this sort of zombie Okipa ceremony, and it was to be able to be that close and watch it unfold and to watch Page to do all those samples, and that's to do all those samples without a computer either. You know what I mean? So he was doing him, pretty much all through MIDI, which is great. I like to see no computers up there, with my zombie figure. So, and the third set, I mean, just, forget about it. Golden Tweez and Sand Prize. I mean, that's probably the most complete Halloween show in the history of the band, start to finish. So,
did you patent those terms with it?
Out. What's that?
Are those patented? Golden what was it? Golden Tweez and Sand Prize?
Golden Tweez, Sand Prize, they're available. Also on the swag end of things, they're available at catchphrases at whore.com. We also have Rage Cage for sale, and we have some tender as fuck shirts going 2 for $5. So stop by.
I think Brad should rename his 2 daughters Golden Tweez and San Price.
Yeah. At
We talked
very
about
least
the
the middle
we talked
name.
about the first set and all the dirtiness in the first set.
No, we didn't. Why don't you, Brad? Tell us what's up.
I don't know. It was pretty sick. Buried Alive. You can't ever go wrong with the Buried Alive opener, right?
Particularly on Halloween.
All the dirty Halloween songs they just packed into the first set before they got real serious. Right?
Yeah, saw it again in the tube. Like in 2003 would have been like that would have been a dream come true for.
Oh wait, dude, wait. Dropping into that tube was pretty. It just wasn't solid, right? Yeah, I know. Surely, look, we were all talking about stuff except crackers. So
Listen, there's flubs all over Vegas weekend, but whatever. That's not what it's about. My lawyer's here and he's telling me I can't talk about flubs. So
Zach, you want to say something about a first set?
Dude, no, I don't even know what we're talking about. I just want to talk a bit. And
it's been like 5 minutes. It's been like
it's been like 3 minutes.
I heard something about a first set. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I want to talk about Buried Alive and Ghost and the whole first set from Halloween being a really great piece starter, like laying the stage emotionally. Buried Alive, aside from it just being a rarity and usually a sign of really good things to come, 2 shows come to mind, like Worcester 12 and I want to say Dick's like Saturday last year. There was a Buried Alive opener, and then of course like Buried Alive and a Ghost. So you already get that like haunting ghost memory, death vibe, and I think they maintained that. I saw it again, fits right into that motif, and they just created this spooky environment that was fishy and fall and very autumnal, and people are dressed up. It just kind of worked, and I think that's as much of an achievement. I don't think you judge that first set against other first sets. That first set had one purpose, which was to ready the crowd and the band to pull this off, to go get in makeup, to go get on top of a house, to go pull off another huge risky stunt, and that was a great first set in that instance. Do we want to move straight into Halloween now and kind of talk about?
Well, I wanted to interject because that idea of that first set being as a primer for the second set, it's something that if you look back at the 4 cover album sets that they did on Halloween in 1.0, I believe 94 had a Frankenstein opener, 95, crap, I'm all over the place now, but I know that 98 had an Excel opener. There was this idea during those sets of making them almost like a Halloween theme, and I remember when they played the Festival 8 Halloween set. That first set was like a really old school type of fish set. There was like a Divided Sky, Runaway Jim, a possum, a lawn boy. It felt like a really happy, summery fish set that didn't really fit with the Halloween theme. And then the next year, they came back and they did like a ghost and a spooky jam. They had a big black furry creature from Mars in there. And last year, you open up with Heavy Things, which is so representative of what they did in the second set. But that first set last year kind of, I know from listening to it, I know from people who were there, it kind of left everyone just wondering what was going on. And there was something about this first set that just felt like the perfect Halloween set you could possibly have, where you've got, like you were saying, Buried Alive and a Ghost, but then you have a breather, like blissful moment with Reba that, kind of in its composed sections has a little bit eeriness in it, but then you have that Saw It Again and Tube, and you have that Wolfman's Brother that preludes all the funk of the second set, and it just felt like they knew exactly how to compose a set around the idea of Halloween and setting everyone up for what was coming in the second set. I really, really enjoyed it myself. That Son of a Mule, I don't typically enjoy Son of a Mules unless I'm there, and it was awesome to listen to on the live stream. There was so much noise coming from the stage, and I feel like it was the first one without the Marimba Luminas.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Them up on stage. Is that correct?
fuck that song.
So guys, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the music in the second set of Halloween.
Let Jim talk. Jim has something to say.
Jim, please.
No,
He looks better than me because he has more hair.
This is a great frock here.
Oh,
no,
man.
I just wanted to kind of hear everyone's thoughts on maybe where did the band get the concepts for the improv that really made up what the second set was. We know now in hindsight that Wingsuit was written in part with folks like Mike taking snippets of music from the summer and bringing them back to the band and saying, hey, I think we could build a song around this. I wonder if it was kind of the same process with this album, or was it really taking the building blocks of how Disney wrote it itself? Obviously, there's some really fishy moments, like there's that great major chord riff in The Very Long Fuse that is one of the big reasons I love this current 3.0 list or victory chord sound, however you describe it. But I just want to hear other people's thoughts on how the band probably approached the improv that night. Was it all improv, or did they come in a little composed? Did they have composed ideas for each of the tracks?
I think it was definitely composed beforehand. Those songs thematically sound a lot like the tracks leading into them. Maybe that's just, maybe if the tracks were never, maybe if it was switched around, it would sound differently. Can I talk about this article that I posted on Twitter the other day about Halloween, or no? Is that not allowed?
If it's not written by Zach, then I don't think so.
All right. So I found this article. Well, this was posted to Zach's Medium page, The Fish from Vermont.
Okay, perfect. Then yeah, go ahead.
So it's technically Zach, representative of Zach, whether he likes it or not. It's called The Very Long Fuse by a guy named David Taus. And he was writing about this specific set and how what he interpreted this set as is that it's a peek into the initiation of the creative process for Phish. One paragraph that totally struck me was, if 2013's Wingsuit set represented the most distant point of the swing of Phish's creative pendulum, the point at which things changed direction and for the briefest of moments things were completely still and filled with potential energy, then we witnessed an acknowledgement of this mass return with set 2 of 12/31/2013, where the band showed us this reductivist point of where they first started from. From there, you've got this set of music of songs that are literally just structure. There's no lyrics. There seems to be no chorus. It seemed to be a peek into the eye of how Phish creates music live in front of everyone, and that just totally changes everything that Phish can do going forward, it seems like.
Well, I mean, but some of the songs are heavy Phish based. You know, which one is Tube? Which one has a lot of Tube? Is it Your Pet Cat, or is it Long Fuse? And then the other one has the heavy Friedman in it.
Yeah, the cat sounds like the Tube, right?
I'm reading everybody, but I'm sure that there are others that are.
Dude, they're all fucking light jams. Should that kid be asleep? What's going on? Do you need daycare? Is this daycare?
Listen, bro. Back up.
Say it again.
Some of us have responsibilities.
Say it again.
Back up, bro. So,
Never been to the show.
all right. So,
Well,
Vic, keep going.
no. I mean, they all had sheet music. I mean, they all kept turning pages. You know, I was watching it from the plane, and you could see that they were moving pages when they were going on. So clearly there was a lot of effort put into this. How much they improvised once they dropped into it, I mean, who knows? But obviously, you know, for me, I would much rather. There's no way they were going to cover a real album. Just no way. They're done. I mean, it was clear when Trey said it in the interview We don't really want to be in that position. They are going to do what they want to do, and then you have the second instance of Gordon playing a song where they're basically throwing it right back at the crowd and say, "What's up? We're going to do whatever we want to do. Is this what you wanted?" They don't give a crap, and
it's different than Garden Party, right? Is this what you wanted? Leonard Cohen, and I think that's the bookend, not only the night but the weekend. And if you think about it, on Friday, a lot of new music, basically an album of brand new fucking ridiculous Fish grooves and sounds and sonic landscapes that they created, narratives, whatever you want to call them now. And then on the Sunday night, on the last night of tour, no covers. So, and there were a couple of covers on Saturday, I think, like Cross-Eyed, Is My Soul a cover, and maybe a few others. But Sunday night, no covers, all originals. And so I think that there's Mike, this is not just Garden Party, like we're going to do what we want. It's now we are doing what we want, right? We have been doing what we want, and now this is what we want. And I think the other side of that is a direct a missive from Mike and I think the band saying, this is what our attempt at pure jamming would be. This is our attempt at what we think we could do with instrumentals or live improv, so that you're involved in that process that Brian was talking about, that creative collaboration. You see Wingsuit with us, and it becomes Fuego, and then we run Fuego through the grist mill of Summer Tour, and we come to thrilling, Chilling Thrilling, and it's a very interesting arc there.
I mean, they're in a totally different place of artistic confidence now than they were when they played Garden Party, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Summer 2012 was kind of this period where they kind of got their swagger back. And that Fuck Your Face show leading to that MSG 2012 New Year's, where they came out and they're on the verge of their 30th anniversary, can suddenly say, hey, we realize now we can't please everyone, so we just got to please ourselves. Now they're kind of almost in the position, after everything that they did last year during their 30th anniversary, everything that happened during their fall tour, that it's pretty much, I haven't found a single person who has a negative thing to say about that tour overall. They release an album that they're super proud of. They're kind of in the place now, even with the 6 or 7 shows that were up and down and kind of rocky throughout early fall, to just say, isn't this what you wanted? Like, it's almost like they can throw it back in our face at this point in time.
What? Anyone want to jump in? Wade, Vic, respond?
Yes.
Go ahead, Wade. You speak.
No, I would much rather you speak because you look way better than I do.
Listen. The way I see it is this. They are absolutely as comfortable in their own skins, with the exception of, again, I believe they put a lot of pressure on themselves to execute, not only because it was something completely different, but because I don't know how long it took to put that whole thing together, where they came up with the idea.
They always do that because they're serious fucking artists.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And the crazy thing is that I told the story on Twitter about how my CFO sat next to a bunch of people who didn't like it at all, which is still the craziest thing to me.
Same.
And if you see what happens, there's still a lot of people out there that they can't deal with it. And I don't understand it, because Fish has always been about complete evolution. Like, I've been tweeting a lot about, I've been watching the UIC 98 shows, which I was at and I love. Like, you watch that, they're such a completely different band, and they always will be a different band. And isn't that what you want? Don't you want to see them pushing the boundaries? Like, I mean, I think Martian Monster is the epitome of what we're going to start seeing more often. You know, where they just, because that song, they clearly get lost and just start messing around in it, because now they were even comfortable with inside of the stuff that they just put together on the last minute. And I mean, with them slowing up and speeding up, slowing down, Trey's got the synthesizer on his voice. Paige is playing with the sounds. I mean, I don't know. They're as comfortable as possible, and they continue to ostracize people, which is even more incredible. When they didn't sell out Santa Barbara, they didn't sell out Portsmouth, and
you know what? This is part of it. This is when you make a bold artistic decision, like I think they did in the run up to Wingsuit. It is a firm. You're an artist, and you have a career trajectory of evolutions and obstacles and successes and wins. And Phish has had one of the greatest artistic careers of any rock band and even group artist. And at a certain point, you get to you make a firm decision that doesn't have mass appeal, and all of a sudden you aren't selling out shows and entire tours or entire years. You're still comfortable and doing well, and you now have the freedom to do more of what you want, even knowing that it's going to that it's not the creative direction some people would wish you would either stay on or return to. And I think that this is they should be arrogant. Very few artists get, and that's why I think they continually remind us how lucky we are, why they remain in such tender embrace with us, in so many different ways, is because they know how lucky, how rare this is to be able to create exactly as you want, and continually push that envelope. It's a creative freedom that very few people have, and for any creative out there in our community, and and there are a lot of people who have strong creative vibes that I tend to marinate around, and we're our artistry, our personal creative passion and vision and interior life is in shape to other artists, and that's it's a monumental thing to have to realize. Man, no matter how crazy successful I might ever be, I'm never going to be as successful as Phish. It's bittersweet, but it's also obviously amazing. It's so rare. I think that's extra tickets on the ground. That's playing a lot of album songs over the summer. It's what it tastes like. Give me more. Give me more. I'm fucking hungry for more.
It's interesting to hear you defend, in a way, like the first 10 shows of tour that we've all kind of talked about, that there seemed like there was something off. And I'm curious, it seems like, like I said earlier, I've never really heard a negative thought about fall 2013. Heard a lot of negatives about fall 2014. Do you think, and I'm curious anyone's thoughts, were they in a kind of a transition period, or were they doing what they wanted to do during their first 10 shows? Obviously, it's something we can't answer because we're not all for it. I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are on this, because I'm wondering if fall 2014 clearly led to Halloween, where Halloween almost felt like this peak of the tour, whereas fall 2013 felt like the peak itself. Are they in transition right now, or were they doing exactly what they wanted to do?
Yeah, and Brian, just let me add to that, because I was going to say we're getting close to an hour here, so we should start wrapping up. So maybe think and
no, fuck that. Let's keep going.
Take what Brian said and kind of weave that into your own take about what is this.
Made our predictions about what's going to happen at Miami. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll end with that. But the story, like what your kind of story of fall 2014 is from your perspective. That was kind of where I was going, Brian, which I think is sort of similar to what you're saying. You go, Steve.
I think they're always in transition, and I think that the band has very vocally. 2013 there was so much press with Wingsuit. We had so much more exposure to Phish than we ever get. Trey was doing interviews. Paige. Fishman came right out. He's like, we're finally comfortable. I mean, like, I hear Fishman more than I hear anybody this day. And I am the biggest Trey fluffer out there. This is all part of the plan. Trey, as far as I'm concerned, wants a complete collective unit with more focus on everybody else other than himself. And I think they're constantly in transition. I think whatever happened in the beginning part of tour happened for lack of practice, focus on one thing. I think they're always going to be in transition. I think they have a complete trajectory about where they're going. I don't know what's going to happen in Miami, but I know this. If you're not excited about what they were able to pull off in Halloween, and how that opens up all kinds of new creativity. That's what I think. I think there's going to be so much more new creativity that it's going to be hard for people to get it. I really, truly do, and that's why you're going to see more and more tickets on the ground and people not really sure because it's such radical change. Like this was, and 13 was fantastic. Loved 13. 14 was nowhere near as high as 13, if you want to talk about peak, long, crazy jams. But in terms of creativity, and they're at the top of their game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And in a different game, I want to say one thing about showing up on tour as a band. And no matter what's going on or what is coming 2 weeks from now, or how much practicing we've done, or how many days we got together before tour to start warming each other up personally and emotionally as well as musically. I think that Phish goes out every night and tries. And I think that the point was made to me by someone I love and respect in this community that said Trey would be horrified if anyone ever thought he was not showing up. And I think that's 100% true. I think this guy is a human like anyone else, and on top of that is so recognizes how lucky he is in so many different ways that you can't even count them. And that the idea of him like half-assing a show or not trying, no matter what, is horrifying. And that's maybe why they don't tour as much or why they don't do that. I mean, like I think they're executing on every level. I love this. I mean, at this point, it's tough for me to not love what they're doing. At a certain point, you elect, frankly, and it's a choice. And I would trust my ears, but this is actually controversial. Like, at a certain point, you kind of elect to align yourself with this artist or this vision or this trajectory, and it becomes a choice. I think I'm on the train, and there's so many people that are, and I think it's the people that are really vibrant and are really connecting to something that Phish is doing. These are the people that we just are now starting to see more often at every shows. There's a lot of community cross-hatching and pollination going on. There's a lot of friend-making. There's a lot of deal-making. There's a lot of, grievances being airing. But I think those are all the things of a healthy community. And the health at the top streams down into us. But at a certain point, yeah, you just elect to go along. It would take a lot. I mean, I'd like to think that if Phish started tomorrow playing like shit, that I'd pick up on it. I think I would. But at a certain level, I've just elected to let these guys control this journey that's theirs anyway. And it's more or less about like, do I like or not like this, or is this better than this or that? It's what sense do I make of Phish in my own life? What sense do I make of them in my own life in relation to other people who also share them? And that's a lot of the way that the community interacts is our approach to Phish. We all have these singular or sometimes very ambiguous perspectives and connections to Phish. But that's a big way we're making sense of our lives through Phish. That sounds like the ravings of a delusional fanboy, and I am totally that. And proud of it. In the same way that I think Phish is proud of fucking blacking up in zombie makeup and doing zombie rock. Like fuck dad rock, zombie rock. And there's so much to say about Halloween. I'm working on a piece. I'm trying to make sense of it. I love the idea of dead, undead, and renewal. I think Halloween was kitschy and hammy and funny, and it wasn't too serious, but like it was also pretty dark and sick, and the music was like fucking raging. Like that was not Your Pet Cat, and I mean they're all fucking raging music. They're also rich stories and rich nuggets of music with then just fucking rocking out. Just a peak or two and a no head and just go straight to the thing, man. It is exactly what I wanted. And you know what? A great artist gives you the tools to understand themselves. And I think if you've been around Phish, whether it's the last 30 years or 10 years or 5 years or 3 years, Phish has now equipped you to understand what they're doing, what they're doing theatrically, what they're doing philosophically, ethically, what they're doing creatively, musically, sonically. Here's the toolkit to understand us. We will fucking yell it at you sometimes if we have to. Use it. Use this toolkit to understand what we're doing. And if you like it, we'll see you on tour. And if not, get the fuck out.
I mean, isn't that in so many ways like Trey's most direct Iculus last year on New Year's Eve when
Get the fuck out.
anyone, some of you haven't been reading the book and it's actually starting to piss me off.
Yeah, yeah. Wade, what's your take on the fall and just anything else you're thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. I think everybody's had some great points. Vic hit a bunch of great points. You know, they're always in transition, and you know, I think the biggest thing that I would take away from all of this is that what I loved about everything pre-hiatus was the evolution. Some people say there was a de-evolution by the end of by the first hiatus, but I thought it was great because things like the Lemon Wheel Ring of Fire set happened, and the Sicket disc happened, and I think that this is like the 3.0 version of the Sicket disc, basically live and in front of us, and and I feel it's like that album of heads, an album of and ideas, that they could recall during shows and riff upon. Obviously, what's the use? And so, I feel that this fall, if we had to endure all the horseshit getting to the middle of San Francisco, with obviously some incredible moments, you know what I mean? It's not all, but that I would I would go through it all again to endure that per set to Halloween, no problem. And I think it is without question the most important thing artistically they've done since they got back together in 2009. No question about it. This is the bravest, most well executed, well thought of artistic thing that, certainly in 3.0, if not their whole career. So
Definitely.
I can't wait to see what they take forward from this weekend. Wait, that's so well said. Some of the great past Halloweens were honestly more defined by how the band took like the central theme or the central sound from that costume and carried it forward in future tours. I'd say Vegas 98 and that style of funk that they took from Remain in Light and how that defined the year going forward is something I kind of have high hopes for with this last run. I can't wait to see how the band takes the style of improv that was born that night on stage and carries it forward for Miami and hopefully into next summer, because when we look back on it all, I'd like to think we'll be grateful for that.
Hey, can I say something real quickly?
No.
Oh my God! Always with the quickly.
It's never cool.
Jim, you really made me think about this talking about like funk. I mean, if Chilling Thrilling is nothing else and shows you like Fish at their thus far, if this is the farthest we've seen Fish at like their purest, kind of rawest, like we just did this. These are the sketches we made real quickly, but we got them good and we got them right and we present them to you here like pretty fucking great. And that, I think the execution of the set has to be talked about. I mean, just a couple of flubs here and there. They're so minor it doesn't even bear mention. But this is a dance band. These guys like to fucking throw down grooves. I know that's not news, but like that set was so danceable compared to Wingsuit, compared to anything. It was like, okay, at our basic, at our purest, we think in groove. We act. We create music in groove. That's how we do it. Fucking Mike and Fish go to it. And we have so many kinds of funk. There's even like a surf rock number in there. But it's there's a Plinko. I think Your Pet Cat or Chinese Water Torture is like a Plinko thing. When they purely do, I think it emanates in groove, and I think that's something to really celebrate.
Well, I think as well, we saw the two sides of this set going forward. On 11-1, the way that they just dropped into the Dogs out of Light, where it's an actual jam that they then extended upon. And then in 11-2, we saw them using Martian Monster as almost like a Kung type of let's take you to this other world, and it's almost like a joke, and it's really kitschy, and it's something that only someone who's a Phish fan will really understand.
Right.
And we saw it almost inject this type of energy into the show, whereas the Dogs was this mind-blowing improvisation. I'm really curious to see how they fit these songs in, and if they do fit them in, or if they overtake sets in the way that the Fuego songs overtook sets this summer.
Dude,
I
how
think we
about,
all-
Brian,
Huh?
how about this? How about they come up next winter or summer and they've got 9 more? Like, seriously, what if, like, no?
Yeah,
we
I'm
can-
fine with that, yeah.
I'm not saying they will, and that's not my prediction, but, like, oh, we just did this. Well, we can get together for a week and, like, bang out eight new grooves, and, like, boom, there's just new music continually. Like,
Yeah.
these guys are so fucking creative. It's crazy. And I think, you know, the theatrical part has to play a part in what's coming, in what these guys are starting to really develop. What we saw develop from a theatrical standpoint, what we saw executed was high theater for in a rock context. That's pushing the envelope, and I think it also, during the set, I remember my dominant thought was like, wow, Phish can do a lot with this kind of thing now. If they're willing to do sets and choreography and set direction and makeup and staging and improv and lighting and narrative and structure, like, whoa, Phish could start to get into, I mean, it's really opening up a thing. If that had fallen flat, you know, they would have, I think, probably sidelined this, but they now maybe they can pull off acts and not sets. Maybe they can start to blend rock shows with opera or with live theater, improv theater. We've seen this tried a few times. It didn't work so well in Chicago, but it certainly worked at MSG for a few years with the Flying Dutchman and the singers and dancers, the Meat Stick one, and then Garden Party was excellent.
So guys, let's start wrapping up. We need to let all the people watching, all the great people watching, get back to their lives because they're
No, focus on me. Focus on us.
All 7 people are going to be real bummed we're done.
So guys, what do you think? Let's end on a question of what do you guys think is coming in Miami and beyond in terms of New Year's specifically? Is it just going to be some playing Phish and having fun, or do they they'll do something else?
I go dancing.
Me first.
Go ahead, Brad.
Sit down. So,
Hi, Brad.
I realize I'm in and out and mostly out, but I think we probably already talked about it. But Page and the very long fuse and that little like ditty that he did at the beginning of that really gets me. It's fucking beautiful, and his little machines and all the wonderfulness that came out of that. I think it's going to continue. And we talked about it on the podcast, which is you guys may have heard of it. It's HF Pod. It's like even summer. And then,
are you Prana sponsored though? Are you sponsored by Prana?
That is our third commercial break of this week.
But seriously, the summer into the fall, Page kept kind of rising, right? He kind of kept stepping up, and I think it's wonderful and it's beautiful, and what he does really makes me happy, and it should make you happy. And hopefully that carries over into Miami, and it's going to be a wonderful little dance ditty. When he gets up, we get down.
Yeah.
Brad wins. Who else? Anyone else? Brian, you want to go next?
Yeah.
Smart.
All right, a couple things. First of all, in terms of theater, remember in 2009 they blew Fishman out of the American Airlines Arena. Could this perhaps finally be the time where the venue just takes off and sends us into outer space? I mean, could they just play Martian Monster to come into 2015 and everything? I mean, we're just transported off Biscayne Bay. Like, I mean, that would be the rock theater to end all rock theater. Am I wrong? Zach said something really interesting earlier.
Never.
Which really,
Not true. Not true.
Stop.
no, which is very rare for him. He spoke about the placement, and I've been thinking about this a lot, the placement of Halloween the last 2 years as the first show of a run, where you've got everything leading up to Halloween, and then it's like, let's just play a Phish show now. And they're usually 11/1 2013 was one of the best shows last year. 11/2 2014 was one of the best shows this year. It typically kind of works out that way. This year, New Year's Eve, we've kind of got a similar thing going, where all the pressure is going to be on the first night. And then the next 3 nights are just kind of, well, let's just fucking party. And there's no worry whatsoever. Nothing's leading up to the end. We saw this in 2010, 2011 when they played the New Year's Day show that just turned out to be a really loose, really classic Phish show. I think we could be coming for some of the most consistent 4 shows in a row that we've seen out of this band over a New Year's Eve period. Usually we get 2 really solid, really classic shows. This could be lined up perfectly for the band to play 4 shows straight in a row, which kind of seems to be what they are planning for and what they've kind of been strategizing for throughout 3.0, where they want everything to be packaged really tight in a really quick run. You know, they really excel at 3-night runs during 3.0. Those are usually the standout points of each year. And we've got this year where all this energy is going to be leading up to the New Year's Eve show, and then 3 shows after that of just kind of cool down and there's no pressure on us whatsoever. We've got these 10 jam numbers that we wrote, you know, over the summer that we just played that had rave reviews. Let's just fucking go out and play a bunch of, you know, dance numbers for everyone for the last 3 shows. I think it's going to be unbelievable.
Yay, unbelievable.
Plus, there's no pressure. The 30th anniversary. It feels like the makings of a really, really solid run.
Jim?
I'm not going to Miami because there's no Sunday show. I only do Sunday shows now. No, I think Miami's going to be great. Sunday shows. That's it. I'm out.
Vic?
I like a lot what Brian's saying, and I never really thought about it that they get the highlight, you know, the big hubbub show done, and then they have shows after it. I never really thought about it that way, but it makes a lot of sense. I would like to see them come right on. I won't be in Miami except for maybe the second 2 nights. Maybe.
I won't be in Miami at all.
Except for half of the shows.
On the 1st at 8 a.m.
Vic, I won't be there either except the last 3 nights.
Listen, you see, they waited for me for Tweezer. My plane was in early. That's the way I roll. I would love to see them come straight out with the Dogs or the Birds, and just because if they come right out with one of those and in Miami, then you know it's just going to be all hell breaks loose. The one thing I will say is this, and I would love to see more theatrics. If they come out and do anything like that, I think that you're going to see a lot more people pulling away from it, pulling away from the band.
Bye.
Which is
Go to the fucking Upbreeze tour. They're amazing. Go to
fine, which is totally fine because
Easy.
they get together, they don't have a lot of time, and each of them have been doing something different, right? And they all want it to be this great, true collective. It takes time to figure out what Page was just working on, and Gordon has his side project, and Trey's working on, Symphony. I mean, it takes time to come in. I just think that you're going to see from this point forward, you're going to see something new and different on a consistent basis. And I think that Wingsuit was still their bravest thing that they've ever done, and there were still a lot more people that hated the Wingsuit set than they did this thrilling, chilling set.
Mm-hmm.
But I just anticipate and expect the unexpected. I think they're going to come out and they're going to just thrash, and they're going to do whatever the fuck they want, and I'll be lapping it up.
Awesome. Wade, what's your take? You get the last word because you're the best.
Bullshit.
Yeah, like I'm ever gonna get the last word with going around, dude. So yeah, I think that it's worth mentioning that when they got back together in 2009, I think people were sort of, both, afraid for the time that they were and how they would be when they finally got back to Miami, and two totally different bands in 2 totally different places of their life. And it was wonderful to see the change in the atmosphere in Vegas with an older fan base, with a healthier fan base, a healthier band, and the vibe in Vegas was just fantastic. And I know that's going to carry right down to Miami. I think they're gonna completely run with this vibe, and I absolutely do think that they might not come out of the gates with it, but there will be a massive dogs that in Miami for sure. It may usher in some theatrics for the whatever New Year's gag, and I hope it will, and I hope it is further polarizing. I hope it is. I don't know what that is, but it looks like, yes, framed in my living room. Nice and terrifying. But yes, I don't know. I think the band's going to run with the momentum from Vegas. The fans are going to run with the momentum. And, yeah, it's going to be a great end of the year. Cheers.
Awesome. All right. So this
Thanks,
was
RJ.
yeah.
I'm not finished.
This
I'm
was the
still
biggest. This is our biggest group that we had ever. We had Painted Faces, we had Tiny Humans, we had Crackers, and we had Brian Brinkman in the United
Again,
States.
with the
which was
crackers.
awesome.
Dude, I was born this way. You racist motherfucker.
Oh, roast.
Thank you guys all for taking the time, and let's do this again soon.
Here's RJ. Thank
See
you.
you guys soon.
Thanks, RJ.
Peace, brothers.
Bye.
Love you.